I'm cool. I've been working in design for over 2 decades at places like Amazon and in automotive like Nissan.
And I'm Sharzad. I've been working in design for over 2 decades across a huge variety of different industries and verticals. And today we're going to talk about thought leadership.
Thought leadership. Maybe we should
What is it?
define it first.
Yeah. What is thought leadership for a designer?
I recently forgot where I saw it, but there was a critique of that term because it sounds pretty pretentious. I think it's because it's generic, maybe. That it's like exactly right. Like, what does it mean? And to me, I just heard it as like expert, but it does seem like a buzzwordy thing.
I actually think it's really alienating as a term, especially for people like designers coming into the industry. Let's say you want to make a difference, you want to make an impact, but you have to be a thought leader. It's a tough thing to step into. So yeah, it's not a great term for what we do.
Yeah. So this is how I used to think about it, that they're sort of talking about the edge of where design's going to go, and they're pushing things forward, and they're just presenting the world with new ways of talking and thinking about design, and they're just sharing it with the world. They're helping push the boundaries of our industry. That's how I used to think like 10, 15 years ago, maybe. But the more that I'm getting into the sort of into that space and meeting some of these people are listening to the content that they're talking about, most of them, I think, aren't necessarily pushing the boundaries of what design has talked about, but kind of rehashing.
You're saying them, but I feel like, are you a thought leader? You're saying them as if it's another group of people who are thought leaders.
Oh, I'd love to be one someday where I'm actually pushing new ideas and new perspectives, new ways of thinking about design that other people haven't thought about yet. I would love to be that someday. I don't think I'm quite there yet. I think I have some unique ideas sometimes,
but I think what you're pointing out is that the bar for being a thought leader is actually really low. It is not
the real world,
being out on the cutting edge, shaping new territory, identifying new things that no one's ever thought about before. The bar for being a thought leader is actually just being publicly visible, having, like just tactically, having a Medium blog, posting things on Twitter, speaking at conferences, speaking at meetups, any subset of the above. That's it. Right? That's thought leadership in the design industry.
That's how you're perceived as one, I think. So like really quick. So like 15 years ago when I only have 5 years, or even maybe when I was at school, anybody who knew more than me seemed like a thought leader because they're saying stuff I've never heard of. So someone with like 10 years of experience or something speaking at a conference, I'm like, oh, wow, they're like a thought leader. Except I'm at a place now where I have more experience than that particular person at that time. And there's everything that they say I already know about, and I know the nuanced differences, and I know how to critique the things that they're saying. So to me, they're no longer a thought leader because sort of that level of experience. And I think
it sounds like you still have a high bar. You still have a really high bar for what thought leadership is.
Oh, sorry.
No, I mean, it's great. It's nothing wrong with that.
Because it's a very powerful sounding word, and I think that's why everybody uses it. But to me, because it is powerful sounding, it should have a high bar maybe. But I agree with what you described, though. To be one and the standards for it is, I'm realizing it is quite low. You look at most of the modern design books out there. If anybody wants to recommend any to me that is pushing the boundaries or having new thoughts about design, I would love to read it. But some of the newer ones, I still read them. It's more like I skim it, I guess, because I'll still buy it and read it, so that I'm not falling behind on things. But there's not a whole lot of new ideas in there. There might be like a couple of examples I never heard of before or something.
Yeah, same. I mean, people recommend me books all the time. They'll be like, oh my God, have you read this? It's revolutionary. And I'll be like, well, it's revolutionary to you. And I don't say this to people because I think it's amazing that people are on a learning journey where they're kind of discovering new things and pushing their own boundaries for what they know. But 99% of the time when someone's like, this book is revolutionary, you have to read it, I've either already read it or in some cases, I worked with the person who wrote it, and I was like, yeah, I know where they got those ideas from. We were part of the same company. In some cases, you know, I've read a version of that before, and this is just a repackaging of it. So I don't think that should take away from people's learning journeys. Like you said, thought leadership to you, it's been this moving, evolving target where you're learning new things from different people depending on where you are in your career. So yeah, maybe like the tactical takeaway here is for people in our industry, like if you want to be a thought leader, you can, because there is someone out there who is going to benefit from what you have to say, right?
Yeah. I think, yeah, you just have to, even if it's rehashing something that's already been said into your own words, if you're communicating that out to people that don't know that stuff yet, then you'll be, I want to say, perceived as a thought leader by that group. I guess you will be a thought leader.
Yeah. Functionally speaking.
Yeah. So I think tactically, I think it's branding wise, marketing wise, maybe smart. For me, I want to contribute something completely new that the design world hasn't thought about. And that's like, maybe that bar is difficult or impossible to achieve, but I'd like to achieve it. It's kind of like a nice goal, I think. And it keeps me on my toes about what's out there today and why I'm still reading about design and trying to understand about design 20 years, was it more than 20 years later? Because then I know what discussions are out there, the ideas that are out there, so that because I know it, most of it, then maybe I can come up with something original.
Yeah.
Is the thought.
I think it's a good aspiration. I mean, I love the way you framed it. It's like, yeah, how else do you stay motivated decades into your career? Well, there's a motivation to have an impact, to help people, to break new ground. That's a very intrinsic motivation that I think is really beautiful. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. So how about you? Like, do you want to be seen as a thought leader or be a thought leader?
Oh, I am a thought leader. Come on,
are.
you are too. The bar's low. Remember, the bar is low.
Maybe the accurate thing is like, maybe it's who do you want to be a thought leader to? Because I can't be a thought leader to like for me, a thought leader is like the top would be John Maeda, that I've been following for maybe like, I don't know, 23 years or something. Ever since he was at MIT Media Lab, and he had this blog that you can go find it on the Internet Archives because it's not up anymore. But he used to post all the time on his blog at the MIT Media Lab, and he just had a lot of unique thoughts that I hadn't thought of. But I was also a student and then a recent graduate and reading his blogs. But I look back at it maybe like 5 years ago, and there's still a lot of stuff in there that some of the posts that I reread and found new ones. There are things I haven't thought about. And some of the concepts are super simple, but they're super inspiring to this day. And to me, that's, I haven't achieved the level of thinking that he has.
So I don't know if that's true. Yeah. I want to challenge that because you are out there, you are vocal, you share your thoughts, and you don't know if there's a out there thinking of you the way you think of John Maeda, right? There's someone out there who's just like, I've been following Konakatsu for years. I just think what he's doing is amazing, and I find his framings for things like really resonant, and I'm learning a ton from him. Like you don't know if that person is out there for you.
Like aside from my mom, she thinks I don't know if she does. It is an Asian mom. Kidding. She's pretty awesome. The point that I was going to say about John too is I like to see myself this way, and that I refer to him as John. We're on a first name basis.
Yeah, first name basis.
John Maeda, he's continued to grow, even though he's like at the top of the game. But he went back and got like an MBA or something like that while he was president at RISD. I don't know the time frame, but he's doing all these things where he's continuing to grow and learn and being open minded, even though he's at the top of the game and one of the best presenters. So seeing that, I don't know, is still pretty inspiring.
What's funny is I've never been a fan. Like I've never been a fan of his work. Not even once. And people would always talk about his work. No offense to him, obviously, like everyone resonates differently with everyone. But yeah, I hear what he has to say.
Show.
We can have him on the show. The way he frames things, I'm like, well, that's obvious. So, something about sort of what he's putting out there and how he's putting it out there, it's always felt really derivative to me. It's felt like he's good at pointing to what's happening and pointing to what's important, but ultimately he's pointing. He's not someone who's sort of generating something new. And I think there's lots of space for someone to be really savvy and really effective at pointing to things that are happening. But his work never struck me as breaking new ground. It just struck me as like a person who's has been very good at navigating, finding positions of power, finding positions of impact, and then using that to raise awareness of things that people could be thinking about. That's valuable, but that never converted me into a fan.
For me, I think he's unapologetic about it, I think is what I like about it. So he just released a brand new report that he releases every year called the Design and Tech Report. And he gives credit to the people that worked on that report.
Yeah, respect. He definitely does that.
And he gives credit to the people that worked on it. And he doesn't present it as like, hey, look what I know about design and tech. And to me, I give a lot of respect there because it's not, I feel like he is a very genuine person, that he's not packaging it as this thing like, hey, I'm a thought leader. He's just like, hey, here's all these people that worked on this report with me. Isn't this interesting?
So I think there's a lesson learned here. Yeah. I think the takeaway for people who, if you're out there and you are thinking about whether you want to be a thought leader, one way to do it is to package and consolidate and point to the people who are saying those things. That in and of itself is a point of view. And I think what you're saying is that's what he's doing, and it's effective, it's respectful, it's furthering the dialogue. And that's something anyone can do if you just kind of take the time to educate yourself and collect different points of view and then package them up, right? Like very tactical, low-hanging fruit for how to be a thought leader.
Keith wanted to say, how to be perceived as a thought leader. Like I still wouldn't consider those people a thought leader if they're just repackaging.
Have you seen Everything as a Remix? I feel like that series, it's a YouTube series. It's spectacular. It's been around for I want to say a decade plus. And it actually just ended really recently, and it's totally worth watching if you haven't seen it. Everything is a Remix is what it's called. And what the creator behind this does is he just goes through and he shows how there are no original ideas, zero. Everything is a remix of things brought together and repackaged, and that is all of everything, all of creativity, all of reality is just a remix. And so yeah, I think that I'm a firm believer in that there are no truly original, there's no new molecule that's going to be created in the universe. There's just a repackaging of all the molecules, and repackaging is in and of itself an act of creativity, an act of inspiration, an act of breaking new ground.
I think maybe not 100%. I'd say for the most part, everything's remix. I'm not hard set, I think. I got to check that channel out. That sounds pretty cool.
It's really good.
That just reminded me. I was reading about this Roman architect, Vitruvius. It's I don't even know how many thousands of years ago, right? I guess he wrote this book. I don't know. I just read the Wikipedia, so that people can look it up too. Not a thought leader. So Vitruvius is this architect that he talked about. So right now people are like, we need to consider the UX designer, the thought leaders in UX design. They're like, no, it must work properly. We must consider work, and then the other people no, we also have to consider aesthetics, etc. And then because they're trying to be perceived as a thought leader, right? As if it's anything new. And then Vitruvius, thousands of years ago, wrote this book that just talked about.
Nice. Yeah. No new ideas.
Yeah. So it's I agree with you. A lot of the stuff people have been saying for sometimes thousands of years, and then remixing it. Let me throw this out there, though. I don't know if I'm annoyed by it. I think I am annoyed by it, which is I'm seeing posts now on places like LinkedIn where people are just taking what ChatGPT outputs and just posting it as if they'd written it. It's obviously a ChatGPT output, and I think they're trying to establish themselves as a thought leader. And the people who are commenting on it and praising these articles, I feel like they're being deceived that this person's a thought leader, even though it's not an original thought, or it's not even something that they learned or accumulated. Yep. So I think that's a bit scammy to present yourself as a thought leader if it's not coming from your own head. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So I would say, once again, I think the bar is low. And I think maybe a way to think about this, and actually Everything is a Remix has a good one about AI that's worth checking out. But if ChatGPT is an instrument, it can output total garbage or it can output interesting things. And people who are using it are playing the instrument, and they either are going to be really good at it or they're going to be really bad at it. And people who are posting this content that is generated by AI, I could see a world in which someone is really good at forming the right kinds of queries that output genuinely interesting things from ChatGPT. I can also see a world in which people are just putting trash out there. And I think a good comparison point here is there are businesses that are content aggregators. They exist to collect content that then a content website can buy. So for example, if I'm running a health website and I'm like, you know what, I need an article about cholesterol health. Let me log into this website that just has a bunch of articles about cholesterol health. I'll just buy one of them and I'll post it on my site. And that site could also serve that exact same content to someone else who wants to post an article about cholesterol. And so all of a sudden, I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you search for some topics, you will see the exact same website, like the exact same content over and over and over and over again, because people are going to a central repository, buying or potentially stealing that content and then repurposing it as their own. So we have a robust economy of stolen content and regurgitated content that like is powering the internet for where we find information. Does that mean that those websites are reputable? Does that mean that they're providing thought leadership and health in this instance? No, they're trash. I like cross-check all of them because I look at them and I'm like, well, I know enough to know 90% of this is like superficial and remedial at best, but that's because I put work into it. So the point I'm making is maybe those websites are useful to some people and they're like, thank God I found this article about cholesterol. I needed to know this. And I feel the same way about ChatGPT content that people are posting as their own. Maybe it's useful to someone. I don't think it's good, but maybe someone else.
Someone finds it. So I guess it's maybe the label then. Yeah, they're like putting content out there that they're pouring over from somebody else, so they become kind of like a middleman and like spreading the word.
So here's what worries me. What worries me is we need thought leaders. We need people who are diverse and representative of our population, who are willing to put themselves out there to share their perspective. Like that is actually the most important thing. And if thought leadership is equated with, I have to have original thoughts that are fully thought through and new, and I have to build a brand for myself, and I have to be the person that everyone goes to for this topic, and I have to own the space, that is such a high bar, and it is going to prevent people who have really valuable perspectives from speaking up and from showing up. So I think for me, if I think about the bar being low, I actually want it to be low, because I've talked to so many, especially women, who are like, well, I want to be a thought leader, but to do that, there's like these 8 things that I need to do, and I have to figure out what my brand is, and then I have to really own that, and I want to make sure I have good content around that brand. So it's going to be a couple years, but I think I can get there. And I'm like, oh my God, no, just write an article, just start small, just put something out there, see how it goes. And then maybe apply for a conference or find a meetup group where you could practice. Just start, because someone will find it useful, right?
I 100%.
Am I convincing you?
No, that I agree with it. I think it's the original point that I was making too. And it's like, to those people, they're not necessarily going to be a thought leader to everybody. Maybe that's like the mental obstacle or mental hurdle that they have to go through. Similar to myself, my standard is like, I want to be a thought leader to the design industry, which is every designer. And that's like really high of a bar. That's like aspiration. And for the people that you're talking to too, that would be, it's impossible or extremely difficult to get to. However, like wherever anybody's at in their careers, they can be a thought leader to everybody kind of below. So even if you're a student in design, you can be a thought leader to non-designers, because now you just gain some wealth of knowledge about design that a startup business doesn't understand, or like a mom and pop shop doesn't understand.
I'd push back on the hierarchy part, because, you know, like design is, and I feel like you'll agree with this, like design is such a broad field that, like, let's say someone is a fresh out of school designer, but they're really good at motion design and they're out there talking about motion design. Like, I would learn from that, because I don't know as much about motion design as I know about other fields of design, even though I'm more senior than that person. So I think it's about kind of knowledge sharing, and like the kind of hierarchy of it doesn't necessarily matter as much.
So to me, though, there is a hierarchy, like that they know more than you, and then so there is.
Okay, I see. Yeah,
hierarchy, like years of experience or level.
Got it.
Years of experience, and then like that person has more years of experience in motion design, for example. So I would watch that person too, because I'm not good at it either. The reason I bring up sort of this hierarchy stuff and is like the mentorship thing that I'm seeing a little bit, where I will see someone with like 2 years out of school mentoring someone that has less than 2 years, for example, and that person with 2 years of work experience does have a pretty good amount of knowledge about design and the things that they can share, but might be teaching or sharing as if it's like a definitive way that something should be done. Like, oh, in design, you must be human-centered. And it's like, you want to be, I want to be, but sometimes you have to deviate or compromise in certain scenarios. But that person may not understand where you break away from some of the rules that design has established. So that's a little bit worrisome to me. Even for me right now, when I give advice, I preface it to anybody that I'm mentoring that, hey, it is just one perspective from this one path in career that I've led. I guess that's like one of the main messages that I would like share about the thought leaders, is that there are other perspectives.
I think what you're calling out actually comes with the territory of expertise. So I want to caveat this. I don't know if you remember this, but when we were starting out, there was one way to do things. It was like, you follow the process. This is the right way to do design. You do this, then you do this. And so I think for people who are starting out, who don't have that broadened perspective yet, to realize that there's never one way to do things. There's 10,000 ways to do things. And my opinion is just my opinion. And I'm going to caveat it with that because, you know, neither of us think we're thought leaders or experts, but, you know, here we are. I think that I've seen, 2 years out of school designers mentor fresh grads. And I think that's part of the learning journey, to teach someone else. And as part of teaching someone, recognize your own learnings and shortcomings. And so I would even say, for folks who are out there sort of on a learning journey themselves, maybe just exactly what you said, have in mind that there's a lot of perspectives and no one person is going to have the answer for you. But also, I wouldn't fault anyone for having that mindset, right? Because we all had it when we started. We all thought there was like the one true way to do design. And why are you doing it wrong? This is the way that you do it.
In addition to that, I think the people with 2 years of experience, I think, should be mentoring and should be sharing and should be thought leaders, because it is one perspective. And the people that know less than they do, they would absolutely gain a ton of information and knowledge from whoever it is that has more information. One point to that, I don't think they're an expert though. So maybe might be semantics, but
expertise and thought leadership, I think that's such a great point. Expertise and thought leadership should not be conflated. I actually think that's part of having that low bar for thought leadership. It's not the same as expertise. It's okay that it's not. Like, it doesn't have to be, right? I feel like we've had a breakthrough here, Ko. I've learned something new about thought leadership by like disambiguating it from expertise.
For our own homework, we should regurgitate, remix something and then just put it out there and then see what people respond.
Is that not what we're doing in this podcast?
Yeah, we're sharing gold. I don't think are we rehashing old things? We might be.
I don't know, probably, right? We're all like a amalgam of all the things we've learned along the way.
But it's packaged on a YouTube channel and you can watch it on your phone. That's about it, Andre.
Okay, so to wrap up, what advice would you give yourself about thought leadership, knowing what you know now?
Oh, damn. Like, put yourself out there, your thoughts. And I think the best part of that is people will critique you too, and you can have really fruitful discussions. I think it's maybe less about thought leadership, but more about putting your thoughts out there into the world and your opinions, and being open to the feedback and criticism and conversations that come your way because of that, because that's going to help you continue to grow. And that experience, I think, will help you become a leader in design. And for me, it's certainly done that a lot.
I love that. Love that. Okay, so my lessons learned, and I learned this from you, Co. Full credit to you for this one. I'm remixing it.
Thought leader to you.
Yes, that's why we're friends. So when I was first starting out, I would speak at conferences, I would post Medium articles, and I would speak at meetup groups. And sometimes it would go really well. And it would just be like tons of positive attention, lots of comments. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing a good job. And then the next thing would kind of flop. And for a while, I would just kind of like hibernate, and I'd be like, oh, that wasn't good. I'm not actually that good. You know, maybe I'll come back to this. And you and I were talking right before we started recording today about our YouTube channel and how many views do we get? And, you know, how many views have we gotten on past things that we've posted? And what should we be aiming for? And you said something like, it's good not to get caught up on how something goes and instead focus on continuing to do it. And I think that is a really important takeaway that I wish past me had known, which is don't get hung up on how each one point in time goes, each one thing that you put out there, and just use something that you think will help other people and keep putting it out there, because that is actually how you walk that path of becoming a thought leader. So that's my takeaway, my lesson learned.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks y'all for joining us for this conversation through thought leadership, right? Go out there and remix something.
Yeah. Make a YouTube channel. I'll watch it.
I probably won't. I don't like watching videos.
Really?
Yeah.
Please write a Medium post for Shahrzad, because that is the only way she consumes information.
Yep. Write it down.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, y'all.